This message comes from NPR sponsor Discover. Discover will automatically double all the cash back you've earned on your credit card at the end of your first year with Cash Back Match. It pays to Discover. See terms at discover.com/credit card.
Hello, hello. I'm Brittany Luce, and you're listening to It's Been a Minute from NPR, a show about what's going on in culture and why it doesn't happen by accident. For the next few weeks, I am bringing the Smackdown, a debate series to American cities all across the country to find out what are the most influential things and the most important people that come from those places. I'm debating who and what are the greatest of all time. Today's cage match is being held in New Orleans, Louisiana. And our debaters this week are Gulf States newsroom reporter Drew Hawkins and editor and writer in New Orleans, Co Bragg. Co, Drew, I'm really excited to see what y'all bring to the table.
I hope y'all are ready to bring it, because I intend to win.
I'm a little sad for y'all. I'm not going to lie. I'm happy for me.
Well, before we get too ahead of ourselves and, puffing out our chests, let me tell you how this cage match will work. We have two categories. We'll each select a contender for each category. That includes me. We'll each make our case. That also includes me. And then a select jury of NPR culture critics will determine a winner. I'm sure you're dying to know what the categories are.
Oh, yeah. Let's hear it.
All right. Well, the first category. What is the single most influential thing from your area? We're talking about a cultural object. It could be a music genre. Maybe a food came from there. You decide what you think is the most influential thing from your area. We're talking anything that was originated or that has roots that can be traced back to New Orleans.
I feel like there are some obvious ones that rise to the top here, but I think I want to dig a little deeper.
Okay.
I agree. I think we have to move beyond the beignet, if I may.
Mm-hmm.
Do I have to move beyond that lovely beverage, the hurricane? Because I'm not ready. I'm not ready. Oh, all right. That's the first category. The second, who is the most important person that comes from your area? Maybe it's an artist, a politician, or your neighbor. I don't know. But again, you decide and you make your case. There will be winners. There will be losers. And there will be surprises.
Yeah, I've got some neighbors that are some characters, but I don't know if they'll be appropriate for the radio. We'll figure it out. I'm going to figure it out.
That's definitely a New Orleans problem.
Drew and Co know the rules. They know the stakes. And I gave them 2 weeks to scour the archives, call their sources, and decide who are the most influential people and things to come from New Orleans. 2 weeks later, it's time to debate. Without further ado, our first category. What is the most influential thing to come from New Orleans? Drew, you're up first.
Brittany, Co, can you close your eyes for just a moment for me? Just bear with me for 1 second.
I'm scared.
Closed, okay.
Picture in your mind the perfect sandwich. I am seeing giant fried shrimp, crispy catfish, maybe juicy roast beef, lettuce, tomatoes, pickles, mayonnaise, and fresh French bread. You know how you can squeeze good bread and hear that crackle sound? Just perfect. So if you haven't been able to guess, pretty obvious I think by now, I'm talking about what I believe to be the perfect sandwich, the New Orleans po' boy. Pick up! And it might seem like an obvious or maybe even a basic choice, right? The po' boy. Everyone knows the po' boy. And at its core, it's a basic sandwich, right? Nothing special. Wrong. Not only is the po' boy a classically American sandwich, to me, the po' boy is the people's sandwich.
Okay.
And we can actually trace its origins right to its inventor or inventors, to two brothers named Benny and Clovis Martin.
Oh. Wow.
They were streetcar conductors. You know those iconic New Orleans streetcars, right?
Right.
Or maybe you know about them from a little movie called A Streetcar Named Desire, right? Where Marlon Brando is at the bottom of the staircase, shirt ripped open, shouting, Stella! Yeah, well, they drove those things, right? Until they started their own restaurant in the 1920s. But po' boys weren't on the menu at first. Not until the streetcar drivers, Benny and Clovis's old buddies, they went on strike. And over 1,000 union streetcar drivers were out of work and on the picket line. And Benny and Clovis were fully with them. They actually wrote a letter to the union saying, quote, "We are with you till hell freezes over.
Okay.
And when it does, we will furnish the blankets to keep you warm." Whew, I mean, come on, how sick is that?
A bar.
Talk about solidarity, right? The way they supported the strike was by feeding the streetcar drivers on the picket line. So the story goes that when a striking union member would walk into their restaurant, Benny would call over to his brother Clovis and say, "Here comes another poor boy." And if you say it like someone from South Louisiana with a New Orleans accent, let me take off my NPR voice for a second, it's going to sound something like, "Here comes another po' boy." So that's why, to me, it's the people sandwich. It's meant to be cheap, quick, and easy, but substantial. So a vote for a po' boy is a vote for fair pay and good eating, for solidarity, really.
Wow, a solidarity sandwich.
It's very hard to argue with a catfish sandwich. I'll say that. It's very hard to argue with that.
I've even seen po' boys when I've traveled and taken pictures in like Mexico City, or I was just in the Chicago airport the other day and I saw Chicago po' boys, and I was like, I don't know about that. I think you need to give us some credit for who put you on. So I can speak to its influence for sure, and its deliciousness.
Oh my gosh. That's a very, very good pick, Drew. And I appreciate the Union Strong story. Good pick. Although, Cole, you are up next.
All right, y'all.
I want to hear from you. What do you think is the most influential thing from New Orleans?
My pick is so good that I'm pretty sure we can just wrap this up when I'm done, because this is the winner. So I'm going to start by naming some people rapid fire, and the thing they all have in common is my pick.
Okay.
Megan Thee Stallion, City Girls, Ying Yang Twins, Big Frida, and most regrettably, Miley Cyrus.
I'm thinking bounce music.
Ooh, close.
I was going to guess twerking.
Ooh.
There it is.
And we have a winner.
When you put Miley next to Big Frida, I said...
Yeah, I should have known better.
Yeah, and I'm really sorry for mentioning Miley. Unfortunately, I will have to mention her again.
I appreciate the apology.
So yeah, I am indeed talking about twerking. As New Orleanian and rapper Juvenile would say, let me back that thing up. And by thing, I mean argument.
Okay.
Twerking as we know it was born in New Orleans, and the first time that people were commanded to twerk was on the 1993 DJ Jubilee track called Stop, Pause, Do the Jubilee All.
Twerk, baby, twerk, baby, twerk, 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 baby, twerk, baby, twerk, twerk, twerk.
While Jubilee could be seen as the father of twerking, its mother is bounce music. It's a genre native to New Orleans, made up of a fast-paced snare drum line, hi-hat cymbal, and kick. All accompanied by a simple, repetitive, digestible, often call and response lyrics. You may know it thanks to artists like Hot Sizzle, Magnolia Shorty, and of course, Big Frida.
Y'all gotta stop all this foolishness, cause Uptown trying to shake. Y'all get back now.
And this kind of music, the beat, it encourages you to do one thing: move your body and twerk.
Shoot it up, hot, hot, dribble, dribble, hot, hot, shoot it up, hot, hot, dribble, dribble, hot, hot, dribble, hot, dribble, hot, shoot it up, dribble, hot, dribble, hot, shoot it up, shoot it up. Who's got the back to make the beat go? Y'all get back now.
And I don't even really have to describe it to you, because I bet even your parents know what it looks like.
True.
While the word twerk has been around since the 1800s, that version referred to a jerkiness or a twitch. And we all know that twerking, when done properly, it's an effort. You're working it.
It can lead to next day soreness in my experience.
Exactly. The move itself has roots in West Africa and the Caribbean. And there is something that really peeves people about particularly young Black women and femmes shaking it and releasing their inhibitions. And there's a flip side to it too, when hip hop infiltrators like Miley Cyrus, I'm so sorry for mentioning her again, but she really used the dance to appropriate Black culture so successfully, I fear, that when you Google twerk, her name comes up like pretty immediately.
So true.
To make my closing argument, I'd like us to just sit in the greatest twerk song of all time, Back That Thing Up, which is a New Orleans product. Manny Fresh, who produced the track, who's also from New Orleans, he often refers to it as the greatest love song of all time.
Okay, I kind of see it. I can see that, I guess.
And you know what? Even if you don't think that a twerk song can be romantic, the track is a banger. But it also sums up what twerking represents as an art form. It's something that's intimate and often something you do up against someone you like, at least for the song's duration. And it's something that, in my experience, you learn how to do with your girlfriends to show off later at a club or a party or something. But most importantly, twerking is fun. You twerk when you're confident. You twerk when, as Juvie says, when you look good. And it's losing yourself. It's living. It's a release, and one that people connect with healing even. And so it's liberation on the dance floor, or in New Orleans, in the streets too, because we dance everywhere. So the next time you out and you hear your twerk anthem of choice and you feel an itch to just arch your back and bounce, I want you to thank New Orleans first.
Huh. Okay. I am very impressed with the way that you backed up an entire historical argument.
You see what I did there?
On this public radio show. I did not know twerking, the word, went back so far.
It's almost as old as America itself. Stars, stripes, twerk.
I have to say, I really came into this wanting to best you both, and I still might. But I have to say, these picks have really, y'all came with something today. However, I still think that I have a pretty darn good argument for the most influential cultural object to come out of New Orleans.
Let's hear it.
Bring it on, Brittany.
I think that the most influential thing to come from New Orleans is something that is hidden in plain sight. It's something tucked away in the French Quarter on Charter Street. And when you walk inside, you'll see old shelves stocked full of glass jars. They all have handwritten labels on them describing what medicine or remedy is stored inside.
Are you talking voodoo?
No. I'm talking about La Pharmacie Française. Today, it's a museum, but 100 years ago, it was the residence of the very first licensed pharmacist in the United States. And I use that word licensed because it's very important here. Because before the 1800s, kind of anyone could be a pharmacist. All you had to do was be an apprentice for a little bit, and then you were good to go. You could go sell any number of concoctions you came up with. However, in 1804, Louisiana decided to formalize the training and started requiring wannabe pharmacists to pass a 3-hour oral exam.
Whoa.
It took 12 years for someone to finally pass it.
What?
Oh, wow.
And that someone was Louis J. DeFilio Jr. And Louis DeFilio would be the one to open that pharmacy on Charter Street. And thank God he did. At the time, New Orleans was one of America's fastest growing cities. And obviously, with large groups of people, that can sometimes mean a lot of disease. By the late 1820s, yellow fever was breaking out every single year. People back then thought it was caused by something called miasma, basically bad air. And some New Orleanians tried to fight this bad air by burning tar and shooting cannons into the air to try and purify it. Cole, you have a knot on your brow now because you're like, what?
They literally tried to fight the air, like with war tools.
I know. They were like, let's clear the air. Let's set off a cannon. That'll fix it. But you gotta love the logic of the people of the past. Louis DeFilio hunkered down and found a scientific approach. He started treating yellow fever with a quinine, which is found on the bark of a Peruvian tree. And his pharmacy would start to save lives. But why is it influential? Well, nowadays, our pharmacies are staffed by licensed pharmacists who help us manage our prescriptions and organize our medicines. Louisiana, DeFilio, and that pharmacy on Charter Street would help map out the blueprint for our system of pharmaceutical accreditation today. Just think of it like this. Without those licenses, we might be picking up cannons at our local CVS instead. Think about that.
Well, you can still get like liquor from CVS, but I'm glad we can also get good medicine there. And as much as it pains me to say it, Brittany, I do appreciate that you did go with a deep cut, because I swear if she does jazz, I'm going to walk out of here. You know what I mean? Like,
I was waiting for it to be a beignet, honestly. So I really appreciate the depth.
So, we have all selected our contenders for the most influential thing to come from New Orleans. Drew, you chose the po' boy. Co, you chose twerking, and I chose licensed pharmacies. The NPR Select Jury has declared that Co has picked the most influential cultural object to come from New Orleans. Twerking. Work, Co. Good choice, good choice. Who are you dedicating this win to?
I would like to dedicate this to Miss Magnolia Shorty, the late Magnolia Shorty, whose voice is like a key part of bounce music. She did not get to live to see the impact of her voice and her legacy that lives on. And I would also like to dedicate this to the group chat that helped me really get my thoughts together around twerking. These are also people that I twerk with. So, I would just like to shout out to my twerk team.
Okay, I love to hear that. Shout out to your twerk team. One category down, one to go. When we get back, we're debating who is the most influential person to come from New Orleans. After a quick break.
Support for NPR and the following message come from Betterment, the automated investing and savings app. CEO Sarah Levy shares how Betterment utilizes tech tools powered by human advice.
Betterment is here to help customers build wealth their way. And we provide powerful technology and complete human support where technology can deliver ease of use and affordability, and the people behind that technology can provide advice and guidance.
Learn more at Betterment.com. Investing involves risk. Performance not guaranteed. This message comes from NPR sponsor Discover. It's good to share helpful knowledge, so here's a tip that could be doubly helpful. Discover will automatically double all the cash back you've earned on your credit card at the end of your first year with Cashback Match. That means you could turn $150 cash back to $300. It pays to Discover. See terms at discover.com/creditcard. Support for this podcast and the following message come from Dignity Memorial. When your celebration of life is prepaid today, your family is protected tomorrow. Planning ahead is truly one of the best gifts you can give your family. For additional information, visit dignitymemorial.com.
All right, it is time for our next category. Who is the most important person to come out of New Orleans? Maybe it's your dad, a musician, or a comedian. Drew, who did you choose and why?
so let me start again with a question here. Do you guys know who Madame Begay is?
No. But I'm about to find out.
So we're talking about a woman named Elizabeth Kettenring Dutré Begay, or as everyone called her, Madame Begay. So Madame Begay is a German immigrant who moved to New Orleans from Bavaria in 1853. And when she gets here, she marries a restaurateur, who then dies. Then she remarries a butcher, who is absolutely obsessed with her cooking, because this woman, y'all, could cook.
Mm-hmm.
Although eventually she would cook for the rich and famous, she made her name by cooking for the folks who worked at the docks and the workers at the iconic French market, all the vendors and the butchers. These French market workers, they had a rough schedule. They had to start basically at dawn, and then they'd work for hours in the market. And when they were done, they would have worked up a hell of an appetite. So what they would do is they would head to a restaurant called Begay's Exchange, where Madame Begay, the cook, would lay out huge meals of meat, liver, chicken, crawfish bisque, gumbo, turtle soup. And this was the only meal her restaurant served. It would start at 11 a.m. And this is the invention of brunch.
What?
So this meal became iconic for people all over the world. Actors, writers, poets, and tourists. Madame Begay gained this almost cult-like status. And she helped spread New Orleans cuisine across the world.
Jeez.
She wrote a cookbook, Madame Begay's Recipes of Old New Orleans Creole Cookery. She became essentially one of the first celebrity chefs. And when she died in 1906, it made national headlines. They called her the Queen of Culinary Arts. They mourned her across the country. It's really fair to say that New Orleans food may not have had the international reputation it does now without Madame Begay. Without this woman, we might not have brunch at all. And what would they do for those iconic Sex and the City scenes without her? A coffee shop? So a vote for Madame Begay is a vote for leisurely Sundays, hanging with your friends, gossip, good times, and full bellies.
I'm sorry. Wow. Drew, I want to hide my astonishment because it doesn't bode well for me as a competitor. But brunch, you got me with that one.
I will say, though, that you do outgrow brunch. Eventually, you're like, I just got to eat a breakfast. Like, I got to wake up and have breakfast, and then, like, there's a time for lunch. I do appreciate brunch as a part of history. Yeah, but you do have to leave it in the past.
Cole, you had all this pushback. I want to hear. I want to hear your choice. Who do you say is the most influential person to come from New Orleans?
Yeah, so my pick is a man named Homer Plessy. So let me take you back to the 1890s. Homer was part of a multiracial organization, and they wanted a test case to topple Louisiana's law that segregated train cars. And they had even higher hopes to end the separate but equal doctrine that made that law possible. Big dreams. So on June 7th, 1892, Homer gets on a train from New Orleans to Covington. He gets a first-class ticket and sits in the whites-only section. Homer, who was very fair-skinned, could pass for white. The train conductor comes up to him and is like, "Are you a colored man?" And he says yes. And as they planned, a detective comes up and arrests him, drags him off the train because he wasn't allowed to be in that car if he admits to being a colored person. After Homer got arrested, this case goes to court, and the judge, John Howard Ferguson, upheld Louisiana's Separate Car Act. And so Homer and his group of insiders, this multiracial coalition, were like, cool, we're taking this all the way. It lands at the Supreme Court. And this is the case that is now known as Plessy versus Ferguson. How do you think it went?
That's what upheld separate but equal, right?
Yeah.
Exactly. So unfortunately, they did not win. And this is pivotal because it made racial segregation at the end of Reconstruction legal. And because it was now constitutional to segregate along the color line, the humiliation of Jim Crow laws that required separate but rarely equal facilities continued. But Homer did something heroic in a sense when you look at it through the lens of history, because there is a direct line from his Supreme Court case to Brown versus Board of Education. That pivotal 1954 case actually upended Plessy versus Ferguson, and lawyers like Thurgood Marshall, who argued that case, needed something clear-cut to argue against. And Homer Plessy revealed the structures that needed to be toppled so that about 60 years later, they could actually be destroyed. So I am ready to argue, like Thurgood Marshall once did, my case for Homer Plessy as the GOAT directly influences the three of us, actually. Drew, you and I never would have been able to work together on some of the stories we've done in the past. And Brittany, your team might not be the melting pot that it is. So a vote for Homer Plessy is a vote for justice and a vote for the Smackdown, because we wouldn't be able to be at this joyful show that I'm going to win without the sacrifice of Homer Plessy. Thank you very much.
Cole, I got to give you credit. I like that the competitive spirit came through along with the civil rights at the same time.
That's my brand, actually.
That's an excellent pick. Excellent pick.
And it still extends to today. The governor of Louisiana only just a few years ago pardoned him, right? So he was still considered a criminal up until just a few years ago. Really, really important person for New Orleans, for sure.
Absolutely.
I'm still going to win, though.
All right. Okay. Y'all keep going back and forth all you want to. I still have yet to go.
Good luck.
Now, I will say, I'm somewhat shocked that neither of you chose my pick for the most influential person to come from New Orleans. Of course, I am talking about the Louis Armstrong.
Yes, stars shining bright above you.
Did y'all forget about him or something? You don't want to acknowledge the great Satchmo?
I hate to hate on your choice because I do love Satchmo. I just feel like that's low-hanging fruit a little bit.
Yes, dream a little dream of me.
I know you all said earlier in this conversation that jazz was basic, which, I mean, y'all the ones that got to go back and lay your heads in New Orleans. But this jazz musician, Louis Armstrong, was born in New Orleans, Louisiana, sometime in 1904. The exact date is up for debate because Louis was born into very difficult financial circumstances. He grew up next to brothels in the red light district. But here is the thing. He also grew up culturally rich because those brothels were next to bars and venues filled with music. You can imagine Louis leaning out his window after dark and hearing the blues and jazz spilling out into the night. He was inspired. Sometime before he turned 11, Louis started playing the cornet, and he was incredible, as we all know now. And local legends like Joe King Oliver noticed. Soon he was invited to play with Creole bands all across New Orleans. Soon his specific rhythmic swing would take to Chicago and New York and all around the world.
I'm so happy as can be when they swing that music for me.
In 1964, he'd achieve a feat that he never even sought out to do. The Beatles were on a 14-week run at #1 with their song, Can't Buy Me Love. I think some of y'all might know that one.
I don't care too much for money. Money can't buy me love.
And Louis Armstrong's version of Hello Dolly, a song he didn't even like, would end their reign.
Hello, Dolly. This is Louis. Dolly. It's so nice.
Louis Armstrong actually became the oldest person to go #1 until last year, when Brenda Lee's Rockin' Around the Christmas Tree finally got there. And all of this, that's not even scratching the surface of why Louis Armstrong is the single most influential person from New Orleans. Part of the reason why I think that Louis Armstrong is so important is that he actually is still associated. He is the #1 person associated with the art form. Somebody who was around for the birth of a cultural mainstay like jazz also becomes the person who is most associated with it. That doesn't tend to happen when you think about rock and roll or when you think about hip hop. And I think that's so beautiful.
Yes, I think to myself, what a wonderful world.
Now, would you all like to tell me why you think Louis Armstrong is so basic?
I don't think he is basic. I think as a choice, as a selection, it's a basic choice. But I do appreciate all that you managed to squeeze in about his incredible life. And I'm glad that people are hearing still more about Satchmo, who was just an incredible person. And, music is still with us today and will be forever.
Yeah.
So true. All right, we have selected our fighters. Drew, you chose Madame Bigay, the inventress of brunch. Cole, you went with Homer Plessy. And of course, I chose Louis Armstrong. The NPR Select Jury has voted, and they decided, based on our arguments, that the most influential person to come out of New Orleans is Louis Armstrong. Congratulations to me. This is a win for jazz. Honestly, where would we be without the most basic, I say, non-derogatorily, music of all? And thus concludes the Smackdown for this week. Do you think the NPR jury got it right? Let us know who you think should have won by commenting on this episode in the Spotify app or by leaving a review on Apple Podcasts. And Co, Drew, thank you both so much for teaching us all about the amazing things that have come from your neck of the woods.
Thanks so much for having us. And I'm really just glad that Co and I can go back to being friends now.
Yeah, 100%. And I hope our friendship recovers.
Last week, I asked you all for the songs that are topping your fall playlists. Here's what you all had to say.
Hey, Brittany.
Hey, Brittany.
Hey, Brittany. Hey, Brittany. Sally from Southeast Portland here. And the song I am obsessing about right now is Genesis by Ray. It's a pop song with 3 movements, all centered around the theme of Let There Be Light. And it's a banger.
Hey, Brittany, this is Ricky from Augusta, and the song that I have on repeat is Weird by Kaytranada featuring Duran Bernard. It is my go-to when I'm in the gym, and I love it so much, and I hope you will too.
Hey, Brittany, the song that I have stuck on repeat right now is Wait from Doechie's new album, Alligator Bites, Never Heal. No skips, stuck on repeat, but that song right there, that'll get you walking this fall.
Slade, Sally, Ricky, thank you so much for your recommendations. Now, I will admit, I'm not the most familiar with a couple of these tracks, so I thought it would be cool to do a little listening party. Okay, so Slade's suggestion was the song Wait from Doechie's new album, Alligator Bites, Never Heal.
Who you checking if I'm disrespecting you with my tone? No need to bring fall back in August, September. You should just fall back in.
Now, see, I like that song. And honestly, from the sound of Wait, I think this one is a banger as well. Okay, next up was Sally's recommendation of Genesis by British singer and songwriter Ray. Oh, I really like Ray's voice. And I think she just got a shout out recently from Beyonce. So congratulations to her. But this song, I'm definitely feeling it. I'm going to have to listen to a little more Ray. All right. And last but not least, Ricky's pick, which is a song called Weird by Kaytranada featuring Duran Bernard. And this song, I love. I listen to it all the time. I send it to my father, and he loves it too. Let's hear a little bit.
You ain't gotta be weird. Get that out of here,
This song is so incredible. But I'm going to tell you what else. I feel like we have been severely lacking in our culture for songs that describe when somebody's just acting a little sometimey, a little weird, a little off, and making the function, not as much fun as it could be. So I want to appreciate them both for making this song because you have put words to an emotion I think that is shared by so many. Anyway, thank you all so much for these recommendations. I think I'm definitely going to have some of these on repeat. Now, if you want to be heard on next week's Hey Brittany, I'm wondering, what are you really into right now? It could be a juicy telenovela, a new run club you just joined, an artisanal cheese you just tried. Put us on game. We want to hear from you. Send us a voice memo at ibam@npr.org. That's IBAM@npr.org. This episode of It's Been a Minute was produced by
Barton Girdwood,
Alexis Williams,
Liam McBain.
Corey Antonio Rose.
This episode was edited by
Jessica Plachek.
Our executive producer is
Jasmine Romero,
Our VP of programming is
Yolanda Sanguini.
All right, that's all for this episode of It's Been a Minute from NPR. I'm Brittany Luce. Talk soon.
Support for this podcast and the following message come from Dignity Memorial. When your celebration of life is prepaid today, your family is protected tomorrow. Planning ahead is truly one of the best gifts you can give your family. For additional information, visit dignitymemorial.com. This message comes from REI Co-op. For the next 15 seconds, REI wants to remind you that your time is precious and that getting outside to soak up summer is a precious way to spend it. Visit your local REI Co-op or rei.com/opt-outside.